Hi guys. I was just thinking I had a great story to tell you and I want to share it with you. So Buscia puts flowers out on the porch, right? I plant those hanging baskets without the pink flowers in them. I've showed you pictures. I walk over to the window with the video camera and I showed it to you. Well, one day I went out to water the flowers, and when I went to water the flowers, a bird came flying out of the basket. So I was like, I better check this out. So I got on my little wooden stool and I stood up there on my tippy toes and I peeked deep down inside. And what do you know? There was a nest and there were eggs in there. Eggs in a nest in my basket hanging. So I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to water the flowers without getting the eggs wet? Oh, think. Those poor babies and those little eggs, they weren't even hatched yet. So after I thought about it for a while, I came up with this brilliant idea. And this is what I did. Hold on. I came up with this idea of covering the basket, or taking a bowl and putting the bowl over the nest. You see the bowl? I put the bowl over the nest. The eggs in the nest in the basket, the bowl over the eggs. Pretty smart, huh? Then I could water the flowers all around. I just watered all around the bowl, and the nest stayed dry and the eggs stayed dry. And that worked. It worked for quite a little while. Let's take another look at that. See that? Yeah. The nest stayed dry, the eggs stayed dry, and the flowers got water because I could water all around the bowl. So I did that. I did that for about a week. How long is a week? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, 8 days. Those eggs finally hatched. And then there were baby birds in there. And I had to keep watering the flowers. Well, I wasn't too sure about that. So very carefully, very carefully, I decided to put the bowl on top of the baby birds. Here they are. See those little birds? Yep, I got right up in there with the camera and I took a picture of the birds in the nest. And I was afraid that if I put the bowl over the baby birds, it would scare them. Oh, so very carefully, very slowly, I took the bowl, I put it over the nest, over the baby birds to protect them from the water, and they were very still and very quiet. And I watered my flowers, and I watered them, and I watered them. And those baby birds, they were very quiet. They never said a word. No peeping, no chirping. And I wasn't very sure if they were healthy. Mama bird would come, and Mama bird would go. And the birds were always so quiet. Well, finally, they started making a lot of noise, and I knew those birds were growing up. So I went in to take a peek at those birds one day, and they got scared. They got scared when they saw this big face peeking into their little nest. When they saw that, they just jumped right out of the nest and flew. I mean, they didn't fly. They kind of tumbled out of the nest and fell on the ground. Remember that book, Oliver? That little book called Are You My Mother, where that little bird fell out of his nest and he went running around looking for his mother? Well, that's kind of what happened. Only Buscias scared him out of the nest. I felt so bad because they were too little. It wasn't time yet. It just wasn't time to leave. So I went running around the yard looking and looking for those baby birds. I looked under the rose bush. I looked under the lilies of the valleys. I went into the neighbor's yard and I looked under their bushes. And I finally found him. I found one under Jaji's truck. He was very clever to hide under Jaji's truck. It was probably a safe place. But I found him, and I scooped him up, and I carried him back to the nest, and I put him back inside the nest. And I kept looking, and I looked harder and harder, and Jaji helped me look harder and harder, and we found the other baby, and we scooped him up, and we put him back in the nest. Well, those little buggers, they stayed in that nest for 4 or 5 more days after that. Ugh, I thought they'd never leave. And now I know that they would be afraid if I tried to cover them with a bowl. So I didn't cover them with a bowl, and I didn't water my flowers. Well, what happens if you don't water your flowers? Do you know? They get wilty. The roots, they need water, and then they die. And they started to look like this. Can you see those flowers, how wilty they look? Yeah, they don't look very healthy at all. The flowers were drooping and the leaves were shriveling, and those darn little birds, they were just having a party up in that little basket. Now they're happy. They're tweeting, they're chirping, Mommy's coming, she's feeding them worms and bugs, and they're having a big party up in that basket. And I'm thinking, it's time to go, guys. So, hold on.